Hi, today I'm sitting here with Curt Stinson from Realty Executives Tucson Elite. Curt's graciously agreed to go ahead and share with us some of the secrets that he has experienced using his success and how he's built his team and the business that he does. And so, Curt, just want to say thanks for helping us out.
No problem, bud.
All right, so basically, you know, we've known each other for a real long time, but what a lot of people may not know is about how long you've been in this business. About how long actually have you had your hand in this?
It makes me sound so old. Believe it or not, 17 years.
17 years.
Yeah,
Holy
it'll
cow.
be 17 years in February.
No kidding. This is probably the longest job you've ever held.
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, by far.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was going to say you started in real estate right after college, didn't you?
I was 23 years old.
No kidding.
Yep.
So now you told me a couple times a story that you were getting your communications degree, I guess it was?
Yeah, got my communication degree.
Okay.
Yep, from U of A.
And there was a story about some beads for a car. Yeah, tell me about that.
We sold, in college, to pay for college, I sold seat covers on the street corner to pay tuition to go to school.
Okay.
And so that's how I paid for college. So these guys selling seat covers on the street corner, I used to have a corner myself, and then I had 9 other corners that guys worked for me.
Wow. So in other words, you've been delegating a lot of your work ever since the beginning, even before real estate.
I've never been told that, but yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
you've been building a team since you were 23.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so now you've been in the business 17 years. What actually caused you to get into real estate? I mean, a lot of folks, this is not what they're, just wanting to do since they're a kid. So how did you get actually into the business?
My dad had sold real estate here shortly after the war, World War II. So I'm the youngest of 5. I had been selling small ticket items. I had sold seat covers on the street corner. After that, I owned a small business, and we sold $10 watches.
No kidding.
So I've been in sales all the way through college. I wasn't going to go teach because they made no money. And so I realized, okay, well, why don't I sell big ticket items? And I didn't want to sell cars. And at the time, my fiance at the time, we were engaged and getting married. She worked for Tucson Realty and Trust.
Is this Sue?
Yeah.
Okay, so your current wife was working.
My current
your only wife.
My only wife.
Yeah, instead of me, yeah. So your wife Sue was working at Tucson Realty and Trust. Okay.
Yep.
What was she doing?
She was a secretary.
Okay.
And everything, and so Long Realty bought out Tucson Realty and Trust. It was that corner of River and Campbell.
Right.
So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go get my real estate license. Right as soon as we got married, my mom helped Sue and I buy a house. I met a couple of agents, and they said, Curt, you'd be great. Come work at Tucson Realty and Trust. I went and got licensed, took my license, passed the test, hung my license at Tucson Realty and Trust, was there for 2 years. And then with my wife working there, and we kind of lived and died Tucson Realty and Trust, I thought it'd be better in our relationship if I went somewhere else. Steve Quinlan recruited me over to Long Realty.
Right.
I was at Long Realty for 8 years.
I was going to say, that was back in Tucson Realty and Trust was taken over by Long in what, 1998, 9, something like that?
Yeah, and I had left 2 years prior to them being taken over even.
Oh, okay.
And so I had left, and then Long ended up taking over TRT, so it worked out fine. When that happened, I actually went back to that River and Campbell office.
Right.
And so, it was just...
That's where we met.
Exactly. So I kind of stumbled ass backwards into real estate.
Okay.
Through different circumstances and stuff, and I really wanted to get into real estate to get into development, to build homes and stuff like that. My grandmother was a builder in Tucson, and I wanted to get more into that. So I felt selling real estate would get me into development, but I just like selling, and so I never I've done development and everything, but my heart definitely is in selling.
Okay, so when you first started, you did the TRT, went into Long Realty. When you were at Long Realty, you were doing some development. I remember you had a big deal with, what was it, the school district or something like that. Right. Managed to work something out there, especially with Pomegranate. I know you were working with Pomegranate Construction.
Yep.
Or was it development?
Yep.
Development. I know you were working with them for a while. So during the height of the market, you really had a couple things going on at the same time. You had Pomegranate, you had a large development division that you were running on your own.
Yep.
You were building some houses, as I remember. You were also fixing and flipping.
Yep.
You went ahead, you had your own team that you started.
Yep.
And then at the same time, you're selling real estate in and of it yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you were a busy guy. I remember those days.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was running a little thin.
Yeah, no doubt. And so then, on average, if you had to kind of average it out, how many transactions do you do a year, or do you do, your measurement by volume, or how do you kind of figure out where you are in terms of transactions and productivity?
Oh, because I've been in Mike Ferry for 13 years. I'm more of a transaction-based agent than a volume-based agent.
Okay.
I concentrate more on the transactions than I have the volume. I worked up to like 60 transactions about 5 years into the business. I got up to about 60 transactions.
Wow, that's impressive.
And then I started hitting a wall.
Okay.
And so then that's when I joined Mike Ferry.
Right.
And then that propelled me, after a couple of years, that propelled me up into right around 100 closed and pending, not closed. And so then...
and what year was this?
Well,
I mean, like in
2000.
So in terms of how long were you in the market before you actually got to about 100 closed and pending?
About 7 years.
So 6 or 7 years, you're closing or pending 100 a year.
Right.
And that's about after 7 years in the business.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. And
wow.
so that, and then when I started the land division, I had a whole separate brokerage of land division, and then I started the development company. So I had the development company, my house brokerage business, and my land brokerage business. My actual number of transactions dropped, but I was doing some big deals in the other two, which I actually made more money, but my transactions dropped. But then when the market collapsed, those two entities went away. I had to refocus on my brokerage business.
The sales.
Right, the sales business of it. And now I have worked, I dipped all the way down to 70 transactions. I went back up to 85, 113, and then we closed 130 last year.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm getting this right, you went ahead in the late 90s, early 2000, you had started to begin to build a team.
Yeah.
You started netting out for yourself just a one-person operation. Was there an assistant at the time when it was just you, or were you doing all the paperwork yourself, or how did that work out?
I got up to about 40, 50 transactions right before I joined Mike Ferry. I got up to about 40 or 50 transactions on my own, pulling my hair out, dropping the ball. Leads weren't getting followed up on. I could see the dollars going out the door because I'm not.
Oh yeah.
I'm not tracking the leads. I'm not following up on leads. I'm calling people. Oh, I just bought a house yesterday. Stuff like that. And those hurt. I'm a person. Unfortunately, I think I can do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I hired an assistant, my first assistant, and it was a nightmare. And I ended up having to fire her. I waited a while, started pulling my hair out again, decided to do it again, hired a great guy. Things went great. Production started going up. I started getting super busy again. We started dropping the ball again because me and him both were so busy.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to hire a third person. At that same time, I joined Mike Ferry.
Okay, so let me stop you right there real quick. So here you are, 50, 60 transactions a year, no assistants,
Right.
pulling your hair out,
Mm-hmm.
dropping the ball, hire your first assistant at 50 or 60 transactions.
Yep.
I mean, for a lot of people, they're pulling their hair out, especially if they're new, they're pulling their hair out maybe 2 or 3. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so here you are, working like a madman. You get the first assistant, it doesn't work out at all. Then you go right back to the drawing board. After a time, you hire somebody else. And now you see your business, because you've got a good assistant, things are really starting to work for you in your favor.
Yep.
And then when it's getting to that point where things are dropping again, you got to hire somebody else.
Yep.
Now this other person you've hired, were they a buyer's agent? Were they another assistant? What was their job?
Basically, what we had done is I had an office manager to do, basically an office assistant to do paperwork. because that was I was really dropping the ball. My broker Long Realty was on my case for not getting my paperwork turned in and not getting things done properly.
Okay.
So I hated that aspect, so I subbed that out to my assistant. That was my first assistant.
Okay.
So then I was able to go out and sell more, and that increased the business. Well, then that person got a little overloaded, and buyers were dropping. And then Mike Ferry system is a listing-based system, of more than buyers, but both. But I mean, they want you to concentrate on listings. So I wanted to convert over to listings, but I didn't want to drop all the buyers. So I hired a buyer's agent, like you said. So I hired a person to take care of only buyers.
Okay, so that was the third person. Well, the third person of the team, so to speak.
Correct.
You had the assistant, then you hired a buyer's agent because you wanted to really focus more on the sellers themselves.
Yep.
Okay, and so then how did you end up paying for that first assistant?
The first assistant was a straight hourly job.
Okay.
And then as soon as I joined Mike Ferry, they told me you need to incentivize that person.
Okay.
So they got a salary plus a bonus for every deal they closed.
Okay.
Because it strictly would be, we would take the listing and turn it over, and when it closed, they would get a bonus, like $100 or something.
Okay.
So they had teeth in the game.
Right.
So the more deals we closed, the more money they made.
Right. So there was an incentive for them to make sure they did everything they could to get it closed.
Yep. And the buyer's agent was on straight commission.
Okay. All right. Good deal. All right. And so then, now that you've done this and you've built this team, how many people are on your team now?
We have 8 right now.
8. Okay. And how many of those are support staff versus sales?
Okay. So how the team is set up right now, I have my office manager, Jeanette. I have my listing coordinator, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
So I take a listing, I give it to Ryan. Ryan handles all the listing. Make sure all the signs go up, it gets inputted in MLS. He does everything regarding a listing. If the seller has a question on what's going on with their house, they call Ryan.
Okay.
Okay, so Ryan does all of my listings. He's under Jeanette. Jeanette runs the team. So then I have Ryan. I have Erica. Erica's my short sale negotiator.
Okay.
Because that's such a big portion of my business. She runs all of our short sales. So an offer comes in on one of our listings. Once the seller signs it, once buyer and seller sign it, it goes to Erica. Erica does all of the negotiations with the bank.
Okay.
So that's her whole job.
Okay.
Then I have Marissa, who's my marketing girl, and what Marissa does is she prospects during the morning and helps me follow up on leads in the afternoon, and sometimes we'll go on appointments if I'm booked on an appointment.
Okay.
And so she assists me in generating listings.
Okay.
I have 3 buyer's agents.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they do is work with buyers.
Right.
I have Joseph, who's my senior buyer's agent.
Mm-hmm.
I have Rochelle, who is 2/3.
Okay.
2/3. 1/3 she has another job that she does more for fun.
Right.
So she's available 2/3 of the time.
Right.
And then I have Mikhail,
Mm-hmm.
who is starting a family and is working about half-time now.
Okay.
So those are my 3 buyer's agents that are taking care of my buyers.
Okay.
And then I have a prospector who's a phone solicitor who helps prospect in the morning, make calls, and then also in the afternoon we'll do some clerical stuff.
Okay. And so then basically, excuse me, what I'm hearing this whole thing working out to be is this evolution from you being a one-man show, doing 60 deals a year, going crazy, hiring some people to help you, seeing the business grow even more, and then you've pretty much expanded, really extended your reach in maybe late 99, 2000, early 2000s. You're expanding your reach into land, sales, land brokerage development type of things. And then when the market starts to crash in 2005, you close up those other areas of your business and focus on your sales. And from what I just heard you say, even in the sales part yourself, you ventured into some areas that were in short sales. And then a lot of people were really terrified to get into short sales. But I know from our personal experience, you jumped into that really early into that game. It looked like you kind of saw an opportunity there that you capitalized on. So how did you get that foresight to realize this is where I need to be? How did you get to that point? Or did you just kind of fall into it?
I can remember specifically I came out of the development and the land brokerage, which was a huge portion of my income that had gone away.
Right.
And I went through some very tough financial times.
I would imagine.
And luckily, knock on wood, got out of all my investments they didn't sink me. Most developers did. So I was lucky enough to salvage what I got, still came out of it okay, and then got back to work in sales.
Okay.
But coming out of that, I had a really bad taste on where the market was going. By being around some huge nationwide developers and their fear, I realized we're in trouble. So that gave me a little insight. Then I remember specifically, I was at a Mike Ferry seminar with one of the number one agents. He's probably within the top 3 agents in San Francisco. Me and him are on the balcony. Seminar had just started. Me and him decided to stay out a little bit. We were talking, and he goes, "What are you doing, Curt?" And I said, I think I'm going short sale route. I said, I think I'm going to go after the short sales. I go, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm going to go after REO bank-owned properties." And he asked me, "Why are you going after short sales?" I said, "A lot of the accounts on the REOs have been taken up already."
Right.
Because we've had REOs on and off forever. And I said, so a lot of those accounts already, in my opinion, were pretty well taken. In retrospect, they probably weren't. That was a wall I had put up in front of myself. Alex in San Francisco said, "We've had no bank-owned properties."
This is Alex
Laird.
Oh, yeah, he's a big guy.
Yeah, we've had no bank-owned properties. I'm going after the REOs. And I said, "Okay, let's keep in contact." And so that's where we drew the line in the sand, and we went back to work. And he went huge into REOs in San Francisco.
Yeah, he's enormous,
Yeah.
Alex Barrett. Yeah.
And so then and I've always looked at his business and said, "Damn, I wish I should have done that."
Mm-hmm.
What's funny now is things come full circle. He's like, "I wish I should have done short sales."
Sure.
So it was just a choice that we had made. It's always greener on the other side of the fence. I don't know if it's right or wrong.
Right.
But yeah, that was 5 years ago. And so,
and it seems to me like, from everything that I've seen you do in your business, and really you've built a phenomenal business, and everything that I've seen so far, a lot of people in town emulate what you do. There's really only a handful of people in town who do the numbers, just the sheer numbers that you do. And it seems like, you've branched out through your affiliation with other places like the Mike Ferry organization, and you've masterminded with some people who are even larger than that and shared ideas with them. And would you say that that's, been a product of the Mike Ferry organization, or how do you figure that you kind of came to know these big producers?
I had a lot of mentorships when I first got started.
Right.
And they helped me get to that 60, 70, 50 to 70 deal range.
Okay.
And I just couldn't get over that. And so then I read an article in the Realtor magazine, and it's this young kid, Dominic, and I called him up. I said, and in that article he mentioned Mike Ferry, and I was like, I'd heard about it.
Are you talking about Dominic Nicoli?
Mm-hmm.
He's a big guy. He's back east in, what was it?
No, he's in San Francisco.
Oh, is he in San Francisco? Oh, I thought he was back east. Okay.
Yeah. So I called up Dominic. And
I know the name. He's a big guy.
Oh, yeah. And Dominic says, "Are you Mike Ferry?" I said, "No, I'm thinking about it." He goes, "Call me when you are." Click.
Really?
And I'm like, all right, a pretty strong testimonial.
Yeah.
So I joined two-on-one coaching.
So he wouldn't even talk to you?
Wouldn't even talk to me if I wasn't in Mike Ferry.
No kidding.
Yeah. And
wow.
So then I started a small two-on-one coaching, called them up, joined two-on-one. Then went to the first Superstar retreat, realized, wow, I was a nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing 60, 70 deals thinking I'm all cool. I get there and I'm a nobody.
Yeah.
There's people doing 300, 400, 500 transactions, and I'm just like, holy crap. I want to be like them.
Right.
So it just opened up my eyes
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And so then one thing leads to another. You meet people that come in and out of Mike Ferry, but you still retain that friendship
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And so, is it still?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, okay. So that's how it transpired. And then it really gets me motivated on seeing people that are doing that kind of volume.
You know, and it's interesting you brought up that point, because in Tucson we tend to think that, you know, we're the end all be all,
Right.
you know, and we're a big little town, you know, and you know, in Tucson, doing anything over 60, 70 deals, you know, you're doing pretty good. But then when you go to some of these other places and you find out really there's not that much at all. It's pretty humbling.
Oh yeah, very
Yeah.
humbling.
And I'll just share with you really quickly. Of course, you already know this, and folks, you may not know this, but I remember one time I thought I was doing pretty well too. I was doing about 30-something transactions a year when I went to my first Mike Ferry event. And one of the guys, he had said, hey, guess what Karl's doing? And the guy says, what? He says, well, Karl's doing about 34, 35 transactions a year. And the guy, what's his name again? He's
Darren Kong.
He says, oh, okay, what are you doing? Working part-time? Wow, that was an owie, yeah. So, you know, basically, I get what you're saying when you're talking about that bigger environment. And so now, obviously, with the huge team, lots of people you got to manage, the short sale business, you know, the regular sales that you're doing, I mean, you have got to be pulling your hair out. About how many hours you work in a week? Like 200, or what kind of hours do you work in a week?
It's a balancing act, because you have to work to support the team,
Mm-hmm.
and then two, you have to be able to enjoy the work, that you have to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Right.
So I don't work weekends.
Okay.
I might answer a text or an email, but I might work all that put together, maybe an hour on a Saturday, Sunday combined.
Okay.
So I basically don't work weekends. That's family time.
So who takes the calls? The buyers agents?
Yeah, exactly. So if someone calls off a sign, it'll go to the buyer's agents.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yep.
So it's just straight to them.
Yep. If an offer comes in after 5 o'clock on Friday, it won't be addressed till Monday.
Wow.
And so it doesn't affect the business. It doesn't. So that's my time. My buyer's agents know that they need to work on the weekends, because that's when buyers are off and they need to show, and that's what they sign up for. But so I don't work weekends. I work Monday through Friday. There'll be times that depending on workloads and stuff, that I'll be here till 6 or 7, but very seldom. Usually I'm usually home by 6.
Mm-hmm.
And so and during kids sports and stuff like that, then I'll take off early sometimes to catch my kids' games and stuff like that. I have to have some kind of balance, or I'll burn out.
So you mentioned a family life. We know you're married to Sue. She's a great lady.
Yep.
How many kids do you got?
We have 3 kids.
Really?
Yep.
How old are they?
Zoe's 13, Noah's 11, and Evelyn is 5.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow, yeah, you don't want to miss that, that's for sure. And so now, when you've actually hired these people and you started off paying them hourly and all of that, when you were a newer agent and you were just getting started, okay, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced? If you had to kind of figure it out, well, as you think back over these 17 years, the first year or two, what was some of the biggest challenges you had?
I remember being very new. I had like 3 houses in escrow. People yelling at me. I'm pulling my hair out. I'm not sure what to do. I'm stressed out. And I see Mike Harris, who
From Long, right?
Who
good guy,
yeah, passed away last year.
right?
Mike Harris was the #1 agent,
Right.
doing huge volume.
Yeah.
I walk into his office. I said, Mike, can I ask you a question? He says, yeah, Kurt, come in, have a seat. And I said, Mike, you do 10 times more than I do, big dollars, and you never stressed out. Why? And he goes, Kurt, I ran a hospital before this. If I screwed up, someone died. If I screw up now, someone doesn't get a house. Is it that big of a deal?
Wow. So that puts a lot in perspective.
Yeah. And so I walked out of that, and it was a whole new shift in my business where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the best I can, be honest and ethical, and but no one's perfect. And if I make a little mistake here and there, someone will help me fix it, and I'll learn as I go. And that's how but from that point on, my business started really taking off because I didn't worry so much about the minute details of the business. I started thinking bigger.
The big picture.
Right. And instead of getting dragged down in stupid little stuff, oh my God, is my mailing going out to my 10 people I know? I mean, stuff like that. I mean, so that's where at that point, that's where my thinking shifted.
Okay, so Mike Harris and his son Tim's running the show now, obviously.
Yep.
And unfortunately, Mike passed away last year. He was a great guy. Everybody loved him.
Right.
Did, like you said, tremendous amounts of business. He was really good about setting your head right and keeping things in perspective. Yeah. And before this, you were really worried about the little things, you know, things like, did I get this signed, the paper done? Did I turn this in on time? Yes. And, you know, I remember personally, one of the things that Mike and you also taught me was that if you generate, you don't have to tolerate.
Right.
You know, if you generate a lot of business through the work that you're doing, it doesn't really matter if something falls through in terms of a deal doesn't close, or you have a client that's a pain, you get rid of them, you know, things like that. I remember that being real clear. And so now,
the first day, I can remember the first client I fired.
Yeah.
And how good it felt, and how my business started taking off more. At that point, when you realize that you're in charge of your business, they're not in charge of your business.
Right.
It's very empowering.
Okay. And so now, you'd mentioned before that running paperwork was not your thing.
No.
You know, what would you say are some of your strengths as a team leader, as a realtor? What would you say are some of the strengths you have?
I would think I'm somewhat personable, that I can somehow get along or talk to most anybody.
Right.
Coming from a day that I just got kicked out of a house, but that's okay. So obviously not everybody, but I mean,
can't please everyone.
Can't please everybody.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, and I really do think that we as a team do a very good job. Mm-hmm. And yeah, don't get me wrong, no one's perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes. Mm-hmm. But being personable and never giving up. My first year, I made $8,000, had $5,000 in expenses.
Right.
My next year, I made $10,000, had $5,000, about $6,000 in expenses. So, I mean, I made very little money my first 2 years.
You qualify for food stamps.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank God Sue was working.
Yeah.
So, but I never thought I would ever fail. Mm-hmm. I just knew that I was going to get better, and I was never afraid to ask. So I would ask people. I picked up the Home magazine. I said, God, is there any young guys in here that I could pick their brain? Hey, there's a guy. His name's Ivan Shearer. Mm-hmm. Called up Ivan. Ivan, can I take you to lunch?
And he's over in San Diego or something.
He's in Las Vegas now. He's the number one agent in Vegas now.
Right.
I called up Ivan and said, Ivan, can I take you to lunch? Sure. We go out to lunch. He says, you need to meet one of my best friends. Oh, who's that? Rob Lamb. Great.
Really?
Right.
He knew Rob Lamb.
Oh yeah, him and Rob were best friends. So
no kidding.
So me, Rob, and Ivan hung out for years.
Right.
And I learned a ton from those guys.
Because Rob Lamb also has a big team here in Tucson.
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, he's one of the larger teams here in Tucson, is he not?
Yeah, Rob was, in my opinion, Rob was basically one of the first teams in Tucson. He was the one that kind of pioneered in Tucson teams. Okay. And I followed that lead.
All right.
And so I learned a lot from Rob.
Didn't have to reinvent the wheel.
Didn't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
So I learned a lot from Rob, and then when I joined Mike Ferry, I learned a lot. I saw a lot more teams that I could mirror also.
Okay.
But yeah, Rob and Ivan helped me out a lot.
And so you keep mentioning a lot about the Mike Ferry system. Tell me a little bit about what that's meant to you. And you mentioned, I think you said you've been in the Mike Ferry system for 13 years.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about what that's actually worked for you. Because here at Realty Executives, as you know, we have a system that allows people to go to all the Mike Ferry events for free, with the exception of the Superstar event, which is half price, and then of course the prospecting schools, which are like $295. But everything else is free as many times as you want to go.
Right.
which is huge.
Right.
So tell me about how that whole system, if you will, has affected you.
Oh, what's funny about the monetary system is it takes the stress out of the business. And people are going to be like, what? If you knew that you were going to, if you did this, you would make this, wouldn't that take a lot of stress out? Because you know exactly what you're going to make. You're in 100% control of exactly every single dollar you're going to make. And all you have to do is this. And so I'm like, I was like living from paycheck to paycheck, living from deal to deal, hopping from deal to deal, saying, okay, God, how am I going to pay my mortgage? I need to go out and sell this person a house. Oh my God, they're not buying. Oh my God, I need to find this person to buy. So I'm jumping around and I'm like, and so it was stressful, very stressful. So then Mike says, you do this, you'll make this. Yeah, right. Okay, I'll try it. Yeah, right. It can't be that easy. I did this, I made this.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, I can do this. I'm not very smart. So if I do this, I make this. Okay, great. So I just kept doing that. And then I'm like, and so there was no more, a person would come in, it would be a nightmare, and I'd be, oh no, you're upsetting this. I can't talk, no, you're fired. I need to do this to do this. I need to do this to do this. And I worked with people that I wanted to work with. It empowered me. I increased my business. Along with increasing business comes paperwork and all this. And, well, that's your job. I hired that out.
And so the Mike Ferry system taught you how to hire people and then go ahead and set up these systems that gave you the peace of mind, if you will, to make sure that everything's getting done.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Okay. Yeah, because all the outside forces want to stop you from doing this, to do this. They want to, everyone's going to try to sabotage this. And so I was good at sheltering that, and Mike Ferry makes you, and I joined coaching, and coaching makes you do that. So,
okay.
And so now, yeah, and so it's been, that's what built the machine.
So you mentioned this to that. I'm assuming this means prospecting or lead generation or something along those lines. Okay. So you're basically saying everything in the world really tries to stop you from doing this, which hinders you getting that.
Exactly.
And so the more you focus on this, the better your results will be.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And, you said something a little while ago to me that I thought was really interesting. You said that I'm not really the smartest guy. I want to show you how the dumb guy makes a lot of money.
Right.
It reminded me of something I heard from Jay Kinder. Jay Kinder is a real estate agent in Oklahoma, a really tiny town. And he always says, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I always sit next to the smartest person. Yeah, exactly. It reminds me of that. Now, I'd like to ask you...
That's so true.
I'd like to ask you some personal questions that maybe might be a little bit hurtful.
Good.
Okay? All right. Now, one of the things that I know personally from the Mike Ferry system is that you keep your emotions between the lines and keep those lines very thin. Right. So you don't get too high when things are going great, too low when things are going bad. You just try and keep even all the time.
Correct.
Okay. Now, one of the things that I've always admired about you, obviously you're always upbeat. Every time I've ever seen you, I've never really seen you have a bad day. Yet you have had some really trying times.
Sure.
Exactly. And the thing that really focused that in for me, a couple years back, you and Sue lost a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sure did. And we lost two, actually.
You lost two?
Yeah,
right.
We lost two.
And from the one that I knew about it, her name was Hope, was it?
Grace.
Grace, okay. As I recall, Grace, Sue found out very early that Grace was having a problem.
Correct.
And that it would be one of those situations where it would be most likely she would not survive, like your first child.
Correct.
What was that? Was it some sort of hernia? What was it again? Tell me how.
Good job. Yeah, good. No, it's called a diaphragmatic hernia.
Right.
It was, we had the same situation with our first son.
Right.
And they told us it was a fluke. He lived for 3 days on life support and then passed away, and we had to bury him. And then we had Zoe, who our 13-year-old healthy, Noah healthy, and then we had we got pregnant with Grace, and Grace had the same, it's called a diaphragmatic hernia, as Colin, and our very first son. So her case was more severe than our first, and we had to go through many different doctor's appointments to find out if there was a chance of survival, and it basically was determined late into the pregnancy that there was no significant chance of survival.
Right.
So we carried full term.
Right.
Delivered. She lived for about a half hour. We unfortunately had to take Noah and Zoe through that whole process,
Right.
and then we had to say goodbye to Grace and bury Grace. And I tell everybody that story. I'm very open about that story. I'm very open about everything because I think it shapes you. People said, "How did you guys move on?" Divorce rates are really high when you lose a child.
They're huge.
Yeah.
Especially twice. I mean, that's almost insurmountable.
Yeah, exactly. So, I realized that if I dwell on it long, it'll sink me. If I learn to live with it, let everybody know, be open about it, they're going to help me get through it. And the more I talked about it, the more it made me feel better, the more support I got, and helped me heal. I'm never going to heal. My wife's never going to heal. We just learn to live with the pain. Having other kids definitely helps.
Sure.
So, because we've gone through it twice, we were running 50-50 odds, we decided not to have any more kids. But right. Zoe and Noah really wanted to have a brother or sister. So we adopted Evelyn. Evelyn is 5. She's adopted from Guatemala.
She's beautiful.
Yeah. And she's an absolute monster, but she's 5 years old, and she's very spoiled.
Right, of course.
And it's been great, and everything. And we would have never had Evelyn if we hadn't gone through the loss of Colin and Grace. So there's a plan. I don't know what the plan is, but my wife and I are Catholic, and we do believe. So, and we move on. But it's and likewise it shapes you. You realize the family is very important. Yeah. That's at that time, and looking back on it, I never thought about this, but looking back on it, that's probably when I gave up working weekends.
I think that's probably right. I know we were friends at the time, and the reason that I brought this up is because, it occurred to me, I knew personally the hell that you and Sue must have been going through.
Right.
And yet, every day, you would come into the office 5 days a week. You'd come in.
Yep.
You'd do your prospecting.
Yep.
You'd go on appointments. Mm-hmm. You'd do price reductions and negotiations and things of that nature. Life went on. And it was as if nothing had changed.
Right.
I remember seeing Sue at a restaurant one time for lunch. Smiling, pregnant,
right.
Even
right.
though on the inside you know what's going on. The both of you, the stress, the pain, all of that must have been incredible, and yet you never let it get you down.
Right.
And to me, I thought that was really an amazing testimony
right.
of not only the strength of your marriage,
right.
the strength of your faith, but more importantly, the ability to keep going when I think most people, agents, would say, you know what, I'm going to stay home, I'm not going to do anything, I'm going to let things, oh my goodness, my car is breaking down or whatever, right. I can't do anything. And yet, here you are with Sue, losing your second child, and you're still coming to work. How do you explain this?
It was a release. Working was a release.
Okay.
It was harder on my wife but likewise, at that time we had 2 kids to raise. Right. So my wife dug into volunteering at school, being very hands-on mom, and she dug into that. So yeah, there was a grieving period, but she rebounded real quick because she had 2 kids that she wanted to be involved in.
Right.
I dug into work because it was a distraction. So if I sat there and thought about it, it would drive me crazy. If I could go to work and think about deals, work, appointments, doing my job, it was a release and everything. And what's nice is when you come to work, everyone would support you at work because people are here to work. So they wouldn't dwell on it. They would say their sympathies and move on. And you knew, okay, the awkward first.
What do you say?
Yeah, with the awkward first, hey, I'm sorry about yours. Oh, thank you, I appreciate it. And then boom, it's over and it's moving on because people are working. So that's what kept life in perspective.
Okay. And so now, as this happened, the one thing that I noticed also from the Mike Ferry organization, I noticed at the funeral, people from the Mike Ferry organization that were friends that you'd met through the organization, people that you had masterminded with, people that you've known, they had flown in.
Yeah.
They flew in.
Yeah, without me knowing.
From California and other places.
Yeah, Nevada, California.
To be here with you at this time. And they've stayed for what, a day? And then they left.
Right. Yeah, there was a couple of people that flew in that I had never expected, never knew. Because obviously on a funeral, you don't send out evites.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so people showed up that I had never expected to be in town, never knew that they were in town. So, and likewise, I think I do the same. I mean, if you get to know those people so well. My affirmation partner, for example, Darren, we've been doing affirmations every morning at, depending on the time change, because he's in California, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Every day, 5 days a week for 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, every day.
No kidding.
Yeah. So come 7 o'clock, come 7:15, something's wrong. I'm like, something's wrong. It's because I haven't talked to Darren to do my 5 affirmations so I can start the day.
So isn't that kind of hokey though? I mean, when you think about it, okay, let's just think this through for a minute. Okay. It's kind of hokey. Here you are, I am powerful, I am this, I am that, and then he's on the other end of the phone, you are this and I am that, and all this sort of thing for 12 years, day in, day out, good, bad, whatever it is. Isn't it kind of hokey? I mean, isn't there a time when you just say, you know what? Forget it, I don't want it. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. How do you kind of keep up with that?
It's funny. You think it is until you stop doing it. And it's like, I guess it's like having a cup of coffee. There you go. People, I wake up, I make a cup of coffee, I have a cup of coffee. If I don't have my cup of coffee, I'm not right. If I don't do my affirmations in the morning to get my mind right before I enter this office, something's not right. And so I have to, and I guess it's just a resetting of your mind. You go home, you do the family thing, I drop the kids off at school. On the way to the office, like I say, depending on the time change, but on the way to the office, I know I gotta get my mind right to get to work, and that's the affirmations that get me in the right mind before I walk in the door.
Okay, so when you come through the door, it's game time.
Game time. Because
your family or your team is counting on you to be responsible, to be there, and they're not wanting a sour Curt, sitting around moping or having a bad day or gee whiz, the market sucks or whatever.
Right.
They count on you as their leader to say, okay, look, this is what we're going to do. Let's get moving.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I understand. And so now for the year 2012, okay, what do you see as your goal for your team for this year? Let's fast forward it. It's the end of the year. We're on YouTube. We're looking at this.
Right.
What do you see your team doing by the end of this year? What do you want this to be?
Okay. Last year we closed. I stopped counting closed and pendings.
Right.
Because every year you're carrying pendings over.
Sure.
And it just got too complicated, and I just went straight to closed, check in hand. What did I receive?
Right.
So last year, check in hand closed deals was 130. We closed right at 130 deals.
That's insane.
And this year, checks in hand, by the end of the year, our goal is 165.
Wow.
So so it's 26% increase in business.
Right.
I belong to a mastermind group. We talk every at 11 o'clock every Monday.
Okay.
there's 10 of us on the call, and we each have our goals. So when we have our goals, I have to take X amount of listings every week, and I have to close X amount of transactions every week. Mm-hmm. We report those numbers every Monday. And so that drives me. I know I have to,
strong accountability there.
Yeah, I have to take 6 listings a week. Okay?
Wow.
And so I have to take 6 listings a week. I know that I have to hit those goals if I'm going to close 165.
Okay.
So and that all comes from, and the majority of us in our mastermind group are from Mike Ferry. So we all follow the same train of thought.
Okay.
So it's...
And this Mike Ferry stuff, the coaching that you're talking about, I think you mentioned one time it's the one-on-one coaching. Is that correct?
Correct. I chose to join one-on-one.
Right.
After I went to one of the retreats, I realized, okay, if I'm going to get to the next level, all these guys have these badges that are one-on-one and they're in coaching and they're all doing more than I'm doing. I better do what they do. Again, I'm not too smart. If they're doing it, I need to do that. Okay. So I'll be a follower. I don't care if it makes me money. So I joined one-on-one. My wife has seen the benefits of me being in a one-on-one and would never let me cancel one-on-one.
So again, I don't want to get too much into your financials, but how much does that cost a month?
That's $1,000 a month.
Jesus, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I've been doing it for 13 years.
$12,000 a month or a year for 13 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. That's what, 160,000 or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah,
so,
and it's...
I mean, haven't you just learned enough already? I mean, why don't you just quit? You know,
that's what everyone says.
You know?
No, because I'm always constantly doing something. I started the land division because my coach basically coached me into a land division. I started a development company because my coach coached me into a development company. I do X amount of sales because my coach has coached me into that. So it's not, and so I'm constantly changing. My coach coached me into short sales. So it's not that it cost me that, it's made me a lot more than that.
So what sort of specific plans? You've got 165 transactions you're going to do. Mm-hmm. What plans have you got? Is there any specifics that we can look forward to seeing from Curt? You know, the things you're going to do to get there?
Yeah, you will definitely see me working a little bit more hours. Okay. Not much, a little bit more.
Right.
I have to increase my contacts and I have to increase my appointments. So it's not, there's only so many hours in a day.
Yes.
But I have to be efficient.
Okay.
The problem I have is I gravitate towards fun. Okay. And so, but what is really truly fun is talking to your staff, goofing off with them a little bit, that's taking you away from your goal, or a family vacation with your family to the Bahamas.
Nice.
That's fun.
That's exciting.
Okay? Goofing off with your staff, is that really fun?
It's
no.
Some fun.
It's some fun.
Going to your family? Huge fun.
Right. So I'm going for less little fun to more big fun,
okay,
and working more efficient.
Well, Susan, the kids are probably a lot happier about that idea,
yeah, they'll be, exactly.
All right.
Be a lot happier.
So just to boil it all down, okay, you've been really cool with your time, and I know that your time is valuable, and we do appreciate it. If there was a new agent right here and said, you know, Curt, and there are undoubtedly people who are watching right now who'd say, you know, Curt, you had 17 years of doing this, 13 years of Mike Ferry coaching. You've had, you know, a lot of experience with teams. You've talked with some of the best in the business from around the country. What can I do if you had like one idea or maybe two ideas that you could distill it down, the most important thing that you've learned that they could implement in their business that would help them get to either where you are, greater than you, or maybe just get them the life they want with 30, 40, 50 transactions. So whatever their goal would be, what would your advice to them be?
If I had the tools that you're coaching from the get-go, I would be doing 200 plus transactions.
Oh wow, okay, well thank you.
The problem is I created 5 years of bad habits before I joined coaching.
Okay.
And it's taken me 10 years to break those 5 years of bad habits. So if someone was to come into the business fresh, new, and wanted to learn the right way to do real estate, they would come to your class, learn the system, and make a lot of money. It's not a lot of time. it's an hour a day. If you can't commit to an hour a day to better your future, get out of the business. Get out of the business.
That's some strong words.
Yeah. If you're not willing to commit an hour a day to improve your life, to improve your business, you should never be in business.
No kidding.
Okay. So, if I was to tell anybody, the only way you're going to get your coaching is to be at Realty Execs, and to be at Realty Execs, you need to be in your coaching. If you're a newer agent, it's the only way to do it. So, and you're going to make a lot of money. And that's the God honest truth, is if you're willing to work, you're willing to go to the hour-a-day class, do what they teach in the hour-a-day class, it's this. It's exactly what I told you. Do this to make this. Don't let anything else distract you. Do this to do this. So it's that simple.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I think that I would, simply say that I appreciate everything you've said. I know I personally have learned a lot from Mike Ferry and the Mike Ferry organization, and everything that we teach is primarily from that. Now, sure, we go ahead and we, add other things to it. We change a few things. We might add, some other things about buyers that maybe Mike doesn't talk about. But I certainly appreciate, the endorsement. One thing that I would certainly want to recommend to you, if you're out in YouTube land looking at what we do here, if you have referrals for agents here in Tucson, you need an agent that's really powerful. Curt Stinson certainly is a great agent for that. His number is 405-CURT. That's area code 520-405-2878. And I know that Curt Stinson and his team will be able to help you get your job done. So, Curt, thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you helping us out.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We'll look forward to seeing Sandy Heath. You can also see Curtis Anderson on there. You'll also be seeing Dan Beal also coming up as well. So thanks a lot, and we appreciate your time. Take care. Bye-bye.